Chapter 129. That big net, Yang Chen could tell at a glance that it was woven from the silk of the mysterious ice silkworm. It had gone through many sacrificial refinements and was incomparably tough, impervious to water and fire, and impervious to blades and swords. Once entangled, it would definitely be like a maggot in a tarsal bone. And what made Yang Chen most afraid was that the silk net had obviously been refined by a golden core expert. The bright light on it also showed that the silk net was not ordinary. With Yang Chen's current magic weapon, whether it was the sword case or the flying sword in the sword case, they could not cut the silk net. Even if he used flames to burn it, because he did not have a strong fire seed, ordinary flames could not deal with the mysterious ice silkworm at all. Right now, Yang Chen could only escape. The reason why he escaped instead of directly using the blood river in his sea of consciousness to release killing intent to intimidate the opponent was because Yang Chen had already discovered that a few figures had appeared on the road behind him. Although Yang Chen's full release of killing intent was enough to intimidate a large number of people, there was one person that made Yang Chen deeply afraid, and that was Elder Wu Xiong of the falling immortal abyss. Once Wu Xiong knew that he was the source of the killing intent, he was afraid that he would not be able to bear the consequences. Moreover, once the terrifying killing intent was known by others, he simply could not explain it clearly. Before cultivation, it could be said that it was the killing intent of an executioner, but after that, it could not be explained. They were both killing underground spirit beasts. Why didn't others have it? Other than confirming Yang Chen's reputation as a certain fierce demon, there would not be any benefits for Yang Chen. Therefore, the blood river in Yang Chen's sea of consciousness could only be used as a last resort to save his life, and must not be used so easily. Normally, it was fine to use a little to intimidate underground spirit beasts, but to intimidate the spirit of all living things, especially a cultivator, it was absolutely impossible. When the big net missed, the enemy quickly kept the big net and chased into the flames. It was only at this time that the guys who were vaguely following behind noticed the abnormality over here and hurriedly rushed over. Unfortunately, by the time they arrived, there was only an empty magma river. There was not even a shadow of it. At this time, everyone had already discovered each other, but no one was surprised. Several people stared at each other with hostility, and one person suddenly said, "Whoever catches him first will get it." This was clearly an agreement to divide the spoils, and it seemed that they had already regarded Yang Chen as an object in the bag. "All right," someone answered. His figure flashed, and he directly rushed to the lava river, vanishing into thin air. When the others saw this, they did not hesitate either. A few silhouettes shot into the lava river like flowing lights and disappeared in an instant. The lava river was very long. In this direction, the earth fire gushed out, covering at least a radius of several hundred miles. Moreover, the lava river was not long and straight, but fragmented, with lava gushing out almost everywhere. Naturally, the lava river was also distributed into a huge lava net. There was even a huge magma lake in the center of the lava net. This was the largest magma outlet, and the lava that spewed out was also the hottest. The magma here was not dark red, but bright red, and even the center of the magma lake was blazing white. The pursuing enemy knew that Yang Chen was looking for the earth fire, but he could not be sure whether there was earth fire in this magma net, so he could not predict Yang Chen's current destination. Of course, Yang Chen would not be stupid enough to directly bring his tail to collect the fire, but he began to lead this guy in circles. Yang Chen did not know that the group of guys behind him had a compass that could track his direction. As long as it was within 500 miles, these compasses could know where Yang Chen was. In the magma, Yang Chen's speed was not slow at all, and it was even faster than walking. Although Yang Chen's level was low, his fire escape technique was extremely proficient, so he was like a fish in water in this magma net. The more the enemy chased after him, the more annoyed he became. This magma net was simply a gathering place for fire attribute spiritual beasts, and from time to time, large groups of fire attribute spiritual beasts would surge out. Yang Chen's side was not hindered at all, but the Yang Chen was different. Every time he dealt with a group of crazy underground spiritual beasts, Yang Chen would widen the gap by a large distance. If this went on, he would not be able to keep up with Yang Chen's tracks for long. What was worse was that these underground spiritual beasts that were charging over seemed to have been stimulated for some reason, and each of them was unusually violent, causing everyone who caught up to them to complain incessantly. Could it be that they had really barged into the lair of a fire attribute spiritual beast? How could this be? Nobody knew that these spiritual beasts were completely frightened by the slight killing intent that Yang Chen emitted. Anything that dared to block their way would be attacked mercilessly and crazily. Soon, Yang Chen's figure could no longer be found, and the first person who was chasing after him appeared on the magma river helplessly and snorted coldly. However, he soon realized that there seemed to be more than one person chasing after Yang Chen. What was even more strange was that all of them were chasing in the same direction, as if they could find traces of Yang Chen. The compasses in the hands of the people who did not appear attracted his attention, and he raised the big net and immediately trapped the nearest person in it, rendering him unable to move. That person did not seem to have expected that someone would attack him, as he shouted, "Didn't we agree that whoever caught him first would get to keep it? What are you trying to do?" As soon as he finished speaking, the compass in his hand was snatched away by someone. After struggling a few times, he could not move, so the person lying in the net became obedient and did not dare to say anything more. He had already seen that this person was very powerful, and he was not one of the people he had just agreed on. At this time, it was better to be smart and not provoke the other party. "What is this?" Raising the compass in his hand, the person who attacked looked down at the person in the net and asked coldly, "This compass can track the location of the Cosmos bag on that brat." The person in the net replied honestly, "Senior, if you want it, you can take it." Just as he said this, he felt the big net wrapped around him tighten, and a huge sucking power came from it, as if it wanted to suck out all the blood in his body. Immediately, he was scared out of his wits and shouted, "Senior, please spare me. Senior, please spare me." The person held the compass and looked at the pointer on it, which pointed in a direction in front of him. He sneered without saying anything. The person in the net seemed to be unable to hold on for a moment, and after a hissing sound that made people's teeth ache, the person in the net turned into a pool of pus and blood, which was absorbed by the big net. The magic treasures and cosmos bags on him were all taken advantage of by the owner of the net. Chapter 130. It was not easy to get rid of the troublesome guy, but Yang Chen found the figures of a few people. These people were like maggots in a tarsal bone, following Yang Chen. No matter how Yang Chen changed directions, it seemed that they could find Yang Chen's traces. Fortunately, these people were not as difficult to deal with as the first person, and Yang Chen could always escape in time. Soon, the action of these people jumping out of the magma river after a while attracted the attention of Yang Chen, and the compass in their hands also fell into Yang Chen's eyes. After a little thought, Yang Chen realized that there must be something on him that could let them track him. The experienced Yang Chen, after counting the magic weapons on him, immediately concluded that it must be his Qiankuan bag. The Qiankuan bag in the sect had a tracking formation that could track each person, and there was Chu Hang in Chunyang Palace, so it was not difficult for Yang Chen to figure out why he was being tracked, and almost everyone had a compass. He must have the sect's Qiankuan bag on him. Yang Chen just wanted to put on a show, and it would not arouse any suspicion. The important things were stored in the merit ring. It was very easy to solve this problem, as long as he stuffed the Qiankuan bag into the merit ring. But now, Yang Chen did not want to solve it so easily. He had a better idea. The people who were tracking soon found that Yang Chen was running towards the huge magma lake. Even the owner of the big net at the beginning found this and could not help but slap his head. He himself had guessed that Yang Chen would come here to find the core fire, and the most likely place to have the core fire was the hottest place in the magma lake. He did not think of such a simple problem. If he had known, wouldn't it be better to wait here? The group of people divided into several directions and surrounded the magma lake. The first person was also among them. However, in front of so many people, it wasn't good for him to kill them. He just occupied a certain direction and stood above the lava lake, enduring the scorching heat as he calmly looked at the compass in his hand. Yang Chen was clearly heading towards the most central area, which was also the hottest and most terrifying place. Even the few people who came later didn't dare to rashly go down there. Ordinary fire escape could move freely in the magma that had been flowing for a long time, but it was absolutely impossible in that hole. Without a special defensive artifact or spell, only death awaited him. It was unknown if Xianxia was aware of this. In any case, everyone was looking at the compass needle pointing in that direction. Suddenly, the pointer on the building trembled, and then began to spin randomly, no longer pointing in the right direction. Everyone was stunned. What did that mean? Soon, someone reacted. It was obvious that the Qianquan bag's aura had disappeared. Could it be that Xianxia didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth and wanted to absorb the fire seed at the Qi refinement realm, but he was burned to death before he even reached the inside? Ordinary cultivators would carry a Qianquan bag with them, which contained almost all of their belongings. The disappearance of the Qianquan bag's aura also meant that the Qianquan bag was destroyed. There was only one possibility, and that was that it was burned into nothingness by the scorching underground magma. Immediately, the group of people lost interest. If they had known this would happen, they wouldn't have shown up to threaten Xianxia. They would have slowly let him know how powerful the magma was, and on his way back in defeat, it could trap him at any time. Now, they were pressuring Xianxia too much, and he ran into the whirlpool of death in panic. In this way, everything in Xianxia's hands had all turned into a pile of magma. Fortunately, if Xianxia died like this, he would have completed the task entrusted to him by his close friends outside. It could be said that his trip was not in vain. It was just a pity. Everyone was a cultivator, patiently waiting at the side of the lake, killing the underground spirit beasts while observing the movements below. After waiting for more than 10 days, there were no more abnormalities, so they left one by one. In the end, only the expert who used the big net at the beginning was still waiting here, persevering. Humph, a group of idiots, a guy who can become a second-grade pill refinement master at the early Qi refinement stage, how can he not be familiar with the nature of fire? The guy who stayed behind hid himself in the dark, watching the movements here from time to time, secretly despising the group of people who left. Could it be that his brain has become stupid because his cultivation has increased? Does he want to deceive everyone with a little trick? The expert sneered here, but he didn't know that outside the circle further away, the few guys who left were also sneering. You are so close, are you afraid that people don't know that you are guarding? Xianxia is not a fool, why would he come out to die so easily? Everyone seemed to have already known what Xianxia wanted to do from Xianxia's words that there would be a third revolution pill after leaving the immortal falling abyss, as well as his later words about collecting fire seeds. The most likely thing here was the earth core fire. As long as everyone guarded the center of the lake, there was no need to worry that Xianxia would not appear. If he wanted to get the earth core fire, that was the only possibility. Each of these guys had their own thoughts. No one knew that Xianxia was secretly laughing in another place. When he was close to the center of the lake and could no longer bear it, he put away the Qianquan bag into the merit ring, then immediately took a big turn and fled in another direction. Without the tracking of the Qianquan bag, these people immediately lost their specific target and could only wait for the rabbit to come, guarding the side of the lake. After all, in everyone's guess, this was the most likely place to have the earth core fire. As long as Xianxia wanted to get the earth core fire, he would have to appear in this vicinity. Using his divine sense from afar to check those guys who foolishly planned to stay at the lake, Xianxia almost burst out laughing. If he could openly appear in front of those people, he would certainly laugh wildly and ask, "Who said that the earth core fire must be here?" Yes, the earth core fire was not at the center of the magma lake as everyone had guessed. Normally, people would take it for granted that the hottest place should be the place where the fire seed would most likely exist, but this was not the case. The earth core fire was the fourth fire, it belonged to the Yin fire, and was not like the sun true fire, which was mainly blazing. The characteristics of the earth core fire were that it was continuous and mild, and the place where it existed was definitely not at the exit of the magma lake, but in another direction. And at this moment, Xianxia was on a tributary of a small magma river. Normally, after reaching this tributary, the magma would slowly cool down and solidify into a stone. But this small tributary was slightly different. Although the temperature of the magma was not that high, and looked like ordinary dark red magma, but compared to the magma in other places, it had a better flow. Yang Chen spent a long time to find this place. The reason why the magma that was about to solidify still maintained a very good flow was because of the earth core fire below. Chapter 131. No one would think that the earth core fire would be at the edge of the magma lake. If Yang Chen didn't know it through the memory of his previous life, he wouldn't believe it either. However, after finding the location of the earth core fire, Yang Chen's heart was still somewhat disappointing and jumped a few more times. In the previous life, when did Yang Chen have the Sun True Fire? It should be in the middle Yuanying stage. When did he get the Sun True Fire by chance? And from then on his cultivation base was unstoppable until he ascended. Now, the earth core fire was close at hand, and Yang Chen was only in the advanced qi refining stage. Although compared with the Sun True Fire, the earth core fire was still several levels worse, but having a fire seed in the qi refining stage and having a fire seed in the yuanying stage were two completely different concepts. Quietly, Yang Chen wrapped himself with his spiritual awareness, and he would not be discovered by those people who swept around with their spiritual awareness and then disappeared into the magma. Below the magma, there was a small space that was less than 5 inches square. In this space, the magma that flowed slowly was completely different from other places. In fact, what flowed in this space was not magma at all, but flames that looked similar to magma. These flames just flowed in this space and did not overflow at all, but the magma that was close to it would be burned into liquid by the flames again and flow faster. The figure of Yang Chen appeared on the edge of this space. However, this time he did not use the fire escape, but directly used the fire control method to drive away the surrounding magma and vacate a space that could accommodate him, so that he could get close to the earth core fire. Although the grade of the earth core fire was not high, it was only a 3rd grade flame, but Yang Chen was also very cautious at the moment. Even the lowest level of the flame, if it was not collected properly, it would also burn people to death. The best way was to use a medium. First let the medium absorb the flame, and then the cultivator slowly extracted a trace of fire from the medium, and after getting used to it, he would increase it little by little, and finally achieve the purpose of collecting the fire seed. With Yang Chen's experience, of course, he was already prepared. The profound spirit furnace originally lacked a fire seed, and now it was the best opportunity. However, Yang Chen was still very cautious. He didn't want to fail when his hope was right in front of him. There were 2 millennium profound yang fruits in his mouth, and between his hands was a palm-sized profound spirit furnace. Maintaining the posture of the 5 hearts facing the sky, Yang Chen first calmed his mind for a while and bit a profound yang fruit. While his body was full of spiritual power, he controlled the profound spirit furnace and flew slowly toward the edge of the core fire. When it was about to touch the flame, the profound spirit furnace suddenly broke through the edge of the flame and rushed into the flowing flame. In a flash, the original black profound spirit furnace turned dark red. Yang Chen's mind has always been connected to the profound spirit furnace. At this time, he also felt that the crazy heat wave was raging around the profound spirit furnace. And the furnace body of the profound spirit furnace seems to have signs of melting. No matter what, it was also a 3rd grade fire seed. The magma could be easily melted. It was very normal for the profound spirit furnace to show signs of melting. If it wasn't for the protection of Yang Chen's spiritual power, in the case of no one manipulating it, the profound spirit furnace that had not absorbed any fire seed would definitely be melted. Yang Chen soon felt the pressure, and the spiritual power in his body flowed madly to the profound spirit furnace. The 5 elements of the Yin and Yang 5 elements secret art were fully opened, and all of them were transformed into the fire attribute spiritual power and entered the profound spirit furnace. To collect the fire seed, the only way was to use fire to control the fire, otherwise, there was only failure. This was why it was usually the cultivators of the fire attribute who could collect the fire seed. A trace of flame, under the control of Yang Chen, entered the interior of the profound spirit furnace, and then began to refine the internal structure of the profound spirit furnace. Yang Chen's spiritual power was to control everything in this trace of flame. Inside the profound spirit furnace, Of course, the master of the profound spirit furnace was still the master of the profound spirit furnace. Soon, this trace of flame was absorbed by the profound spirit furnace. Next, there was another trace. Yang Chen's current cultivation base was too low, he was at the advanced level of the qi refining stage, and there was no foundation to communicate with the heaven and earth. The flame that could be absorbed at a time was really limited. And this seemed to be a 5-inch square earth fire. Yang Chen could only use this kind of grinding to grind a little bit of time. This absorption process took almost half a year's time. In the past 6 months, Yang Chen has almost never stopped using the means of controlling the fire to store and absorb the earth fire that was sucked into the profound spirit furnace. Almost 200,000-year profound yang fruits had been consumed, and it was still about 1 a day. The spiritual power consumption was enough to make ordinary foundation establishment stage experts feel pain in their flesh. It was not all without gain. Not to mention the other things, just the fire attribute spiritual power, under the crazy tempering of this half a year, has been at least 1 level higher than the other attributes of spiritual power. Yang Chen could clearly feel that his own fire attribute spiritual power had entered the level of the 8th layer of qi refining. In half a year, the 5-inch square earth fire was finally left with only a small trace, and all the others were absorbed into the profound spirit furnace by Yang Chen. At this moment, the profound spirit furnace has also undergone earth-shaking changes, and the shape of half a year ago was completely different. The small cauldron body still maintained the size of a palm, but the color has completely turned into a dark red. The top of the cauldron was overflowing with color, and it was very beautiful. The whole cauldron body seemed to show a kind of crystal-clear appearance, as if it had been burned into a peerless ceramic by the earth fire. The last trace of flame was quickly absorbed into the furnace body by the profound spirit furnace. After absorbing for half a year, and the profound spirit furnace had adapted to the flame of the earth's core fire, this trace of flame only took half of the time at the beginning to be completely absorbed. When the whole process was completed, the profound spirit furnace suddenly sent a violent tremor, buzzing, followed by a sudden shock, and the furnace body was completely quiet. The dark red light began to flow on the body of the furnace, as if it was alive. After the whole thing turned on the outer wall of the profound spirit furnace for a long time, it gradually stopped, but it left a mark on the body of the furnace like the burning of the ground fire. Yang Chen controlled the profound spirit furnace to slowly land in front of his own eyes, grabbed it, and after playing with it for a long time, he put it into the merit ring. After doing all this, Yang Chen breathed a sigh of relief, and finally he could not continue to crazily output spiritual power, and he could finally rest a little. However, Yang Chen did not dare to relax for too long. Although the earth fire has been completely absorbed by the profound spirit furnace, Yang Chen himself has not yet begun to collect it. Next, there are more important things to do. Chapter 132. In this hidden corner, Yang Chen thoroughly cultivated and nourished his body once. Because of the long-term output of spiritual power to control the profound spirit furnace to absorb the core fire, Yang Chen has not been so thoroughly nourished and cultivated for a long time. This time, it took him a full 10 days to get rid of the fatigue that he had accumulated over the past 6 months. After this warm nourishment, the meridians and spiritual power of the whole body were all restored to the level of their heyday. As Yang Chen expected, the fire attribute spiritual power was unique and began to become the leader of the 5 elements of spiritual power. Compared with other spiritual power cultivation bases, it was more than a level higher. This was also in line with Yang Chen's intention. As the aptitude of the heavenly spirit root fire attribute, it was normal for the fire attribute spiritual power to be prominent. The cultivation base of the fire attribute, even under the control of Yang Chen, could cover the spiritual power of other attributes. At least when Yang Chen went out of the immortal falling abyss, it would not arouse too many doubts. What Yang Chen had to do now was to find an absolutely safe place and then start to slowly extract the core fire in the profound spirit furnace and refine it. This was different from what Yang Chen had done before. After all, the profound spirit furnace itself had the ability to accommodate the fire seed, and it was also a medium for Yang Chen. To really control the core fire, Yang Chen's own strength was needed. Quietly, Yang Chen appeared on the surface of the magma river and there was no one around. It has been half a year. If those people were still waiting here, Yang Chen would definitely admire their patience and accuracy of judgment. The absolutely safe place in the immortal falling abyss seemed to be the only place where Yang Chen cheated. Not only would there be no attack from the underground spirit beasts, but there was also an underground spiritual vein for Yang Chen to cultivate. It was simply a rare small immortal's cave. There were quite a few good places outside, but a cultivator could only stay in the immortal fallen abyss for 10 years. The time spent outside was also counted. Leaving so early was not worth it, so it was better for Yang Chen to finish his business here. Just as he was about to leave, Yang Chen's heart suddenly stirred. He slightly released his spiritual sense, and a few strands of spiritual sense, as thin as silk, slowly spread out in all directions. This was also a small use of spiritual awareness in the three purities secret art. Generally speaking, it would not be discovered. His spiritual consciousness spread out for dozens of miles, and soon, Yang Chen couldn't help but sigh. After such a long time, there were still people lingering around the lava lake. It was truly surprising. Yang Chen had underestimated the greed of a group of ambitious people who had obtained the method to become a third-grade alchemist in the qi refining stage. Even if they had to wait here for a few more years, as long as there was a glimmer of opportunity, maybe these people would still continue to wait. It could be said that the previous Yang Chen, strictly speaking, was actually extremely disgraceful and was forced to flee by these people. Originally, Yang Chen also planned to absorb the earth core fire first, and then go out to find those people to settle accounts. But now, these people have been staying here, which made Yang Chen instantly angry. He had seen bullies, but he had never seen such a bully. Yang Chen's last life was controlled almost like house arrest. What he was most disgusted with was this kind of guy who stared at people. Anger rose from the bottom of his heart, and his courage grew. If he continued to ignore these guys, then such a situation would definitely occur again in the future. Even those who did not have the intention to join the ranks of these people might be influenced by these people to join the ranks of these people. These people, if he didn't teach them a lesson and didn't let them know the power of Yang Chen, they would never give up. However, although he was angry, Yang Chen did not lose his mind. He was now only absorbing the earth core fire in the profound spirit furnace, and the worst of these opponents was also a master in the middle stage of the foundation stage. After successfully building the foundation and communicating with heaven and earth, the change in strength, Yang Chen knew better than anyone that it was not possible to say that a realm of the qi refining stage could compete. Unless the other party was like Jin Tao, he first did something bad to Yang Chen, and under the guilty conscience, he was taken advantage of by Yang Chen and planted a heart devil, otherwise, he was not an opponent at all. He couldn't teach a lesson face to face. Yang Chen could only sneak attack from behind. For Yang Chen in this life, there was no question of whether this approach was right or not. In his previous life, Yang Chen had seen countless examples of winning by various means. Relying on the underground spirit beast would not pose any threat to himself. Yang Chen quietly relied on the fire escape and approached the guy who was the farthest away from the crowd. The spiritual awareness that was strong enough to be comparable to the middle stage of the Jedon stage tightly wrapped Yang Chen's hidden figure in the underground, and did not disturb the guy who was hunting the underground spirit beast here and guarding Yang Chen. There was basically no difficulty for Yang Chen to sneak attack a guy who didn't find himself and was fighting with the underground spirit beast. The most difficult point was to leave before others arrived after alerting them. Yang Chen did not intend to kill this guy quietly. It would not work as a deterrent. Others would not even know that he did it. They would only think that he was hunting the underground spirit beast carelessly. Yang Chen wanted to teach these guys a lesson, so naturally he would not easily make a move. The guy who was controlling the flying sword did not expect the crisis around him at all. He was still meticulously hunting the spirit beast. After a few attacks by him, a spirit beast that was in line with his natural restraint fled far away in the direction of the magma lake. It seemed that with another attack of the flying sword, he could get at least 2 pieces of spiritual essence. Without thinking, The Watcher controlled the flying sword to attack the spirit beast. Just at this moment, someone suddenly burst out from behind him. A blade light flashed in his hand and swiftly slashed towards his neck. At the same time, a shocking shout suddenly sounded in his ear. Every injustice has its perpetrator, and every debt has its debtor. Since you've come to kill me, don't blame me. The shout that was mixed with the god-shaking art stunned the Watcher. However, in this moment he suffered a fatal attack. Yang Chen's sword case had already crossed the Watcher's neck. His head was raised a few feet high by the hot blood and then fell far away. The people in the other directions, including the expert in the center, all heard Yang Chen's shout at this moment. In shock, they all flew in this direction. Before they could go over, their divine senses had already spread out in a frenzy. Unfortunately, no matter how fast their divine senses were, they could only rely on their divine senses to discover that Yang Chen had already picked up the flying sword that had fallen in the distance. Wash your neck and wait. We will meet again. Yang Chen only left a sentence that made people ponder over it, and the figures suddenly disappeared from the exploration of their spiritual awareness. By the time everyone rushed over, there was nothing left except for the corpse of the Watcher. The Chenkuan bag and the flying sword had already disappeared without a trace. Only Yang Chen's threatening words lingered in their ears. Chapter 133. This time, Yang Chen was determined not to let people find any traces of him. All the spiritual awareness that could be planted on his body were all placed in the merit ring. He used his spiritual awareness to wrap his whole body, without revealing the slightest aura. Not to mention that it was just a foundation stage higher than him. Even if it was a master of the Jidan stage, when the spiritual awareness did not exceed Yang Chen, it would not be an easy thing to find him. His concealment immediately turned the enemies behind him into blind and deaf people. In any case, whether it was the naked eye or the spiritual sense scanning, there was nothing but a large number of underground spirit beasts. They wanted to find Yang Chen's shadow, but not even the slightest sign could be seen. This was a very depressing matter, and at the same time, it was also very frightening. They originally thought that after guarding Yang Chen for half a year, even if Yang Chen grew 3 heads and 6 arms, it would be impossible for him to play any tricks under the situation where they intentionally or unintentionally formed a pincer attack. But no one thought that in just half a year, it seemed that Yang Chen already had a great room for growth. At the very least, one of their mid-foundation establishment cultivators had already died in the hands of Yang Chen. If Yang Chen continued to appear and disappear like a ghost in the future, then everyone would understand how much trouble they had caused. But in the current situation, apart from jointly searching for Yang Chen and then killing him, it seemed unlikely that there would be a way to improve the relationship between the two sides. Yang Chen would not foolishly wait for these people to slowly search for him. He had already fled far away. What Yang Chen needed to do now was to find an absolutely safe place, then refine and absorb the core fire to improve his strength. As for revenge, he would think about it later. In the immortal falling abyss, there was only one place that could make Yang Chen feel absolutely safe. In the small cave that he used to fuse with the will of the immortal beheading platform, even Separation Village could not make Yang Chen feel this way. Yang Chen knew better than anyone the cruelty of the competition between cultivators. He didn't want to put his life in the hands of others and be restrained by a rule that wasn't very strict. This time, it took Yang Chen less than 10 days to reach the cave that had been sealed last time. Yang Chen did not open the concealed boulder that sealed the entrance of the cave. Instead, he directly entered the small cave using the escape technique. He carefully released a trace of blood-red killing intent to cover the entire cave. This way, no spirit beasts would come in and disturb him. Just in case, Yang Chen even released the bottle caps of the herb garden. Even if Wuxia suddenly broke in, this array formation would be able to trap him for a long time. In any case, there was an underground spirit vein that could be replenished at any time, so Yang Chen did not have to worry about his spiritual power being exhausted. After doing all this, Yang Chen sat on the black jade futon and took out the profound spirit furnace again and observed it carefully. The profound spirit furnace that had absorbed the earth core fire did not even need Yang Chen to inspect it. Just by looking at the changes in appearance, he knew that the quality of the profound spirit furnace had improved by at least 2 levels. On the body of the furnace, there was a large flame-like pattern. The more Yangchen looked at it, the more he liked it. He couldn't help but use the universe treasure-raising secret art to warm the profound spirit furnace. With a slight move of his mind, a dark red fire suddenly rose in the profound spirit furnace. Yangchen threw the peel of the millennium profound yang fruit that he had eaten these days into it. In just a moment, the peel turned into a thick liquid. Under the control of Yangchen's consciousness, it kept changing its shape, but there was no sign of burning. The earth core fire was worthy of being the most suitable flame for refining medicine in the mortal world. Any medicine, as long as it was not madly stimulated by the alchemist, it would only be liquefied and not burnt. Of course, this was only one of the reasons why the earth core fire was most suitable for alchemy. The real reason was that the earth core fire could purify or refine the impurities in the medicine according to the needs of the fire controller. It could almost be said that as long as there was an earth core fire, then the original alchemist would be promoted by a grade. This purification and refining alone was enough to match the first grade alchemy. And now, Yangchen could already rely on his own means to achieve the second grade alchemy. In this way, Yangchen could almost say that he now had the level of a third grade alchemist master. Of course, the level was the level, the strength was still a hard threshold. Many high-level medicinal pills, Yangchen was trapped by the current realm and could not be refined. But even so, the third-grade low-level medicinal pills were enough to make many people covet. The skin of the 1,000-year-old profound yang fruit plus some auxiliary medicinal materials was the formula of the qi-nourishing pill. The qi-nourishing pill was very low-level, so the main ingredient was the medicinal materials with sufficient spiritual power. There was no fixed rule. In addition, in his previous life, it was also the first time for Yangchen to use the earth core fire for alchemy. Carefully controlling the flame, he first purified all the medicinal materials, and then according to the pill formula of the qi-nourishing pill, Yangchen then began the third-grade refining. Anyway, it was the qi-nourishing pill. Yangchen deliberately used the technique of the Old Lord pill refining method. Whether it was the purification, refining, or pulling of the pill, all were the last methods left by the Old Lord. After all this was completed, the medicinal materials that could be used to refine 100 qi-nourishing pills, only 10 qi-nourishing pills were produced. However, these 10 were all third-grade medicinal pills. When the medicinal pills reached the third grade, almost there would be a qualitative change, which was also the reason why the third-grade alchemy master was sought after. However, the 10 third-grade qi-nourishing pills in Yangchen's hands were all refined according to the technique of the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord, and the quality was better. Even Yangchen himself was reluctant to spoil it. At the critical moment, these were all good things that could save lives. Just this point was enough to make Yangchen regard the profound spirit furnace as a treasure. What's more, if Yangchen wanted to absorb and refine the earth core fire, he must rely on the help of the profound spirit furnace. In the previous alchemy, in addition to familiarizing himself with the techniques of the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord pill refining method and experimenting with the profound spirit furnace, Yangchen was familiar with the fire of the earth core fire. If he wanted to absorb the earth core fire, the first step was of course to be familiar with the fire of the earth core fire. Since the earth core fire was known as the most suitable flame for alchemy in the mortal world, the best way to be familiar with the fire was alchemy. Just one alchemy was not enough for Yangchen to be familiar with the earth core fire. He needed information in all aspects, including the understanding of the situation where the flame was out of control, so Yangchen needed more alchemy to understand the characteristics of the earth core fire more comprehensively. Yangchen was very patient. For almost a whole month, Yangchen was using the profound spirit furnace earth core fire to refine the qi-nourishing pills and familiarize himself with the fire. When Yangchen had more than 300 qi-nourishing pills in his hands, Yangchen finally stopped alchemy and began to absorb the earth core fire. Chapter 134. When the first trace of the core fire was absorbed into Yangchen's body, The crazy burning sensation almost made Yang Chen unable to control his state of mind. In his previous life, when Yang Chen collected the sun's true fire, he was at the nascent soul stage, but now Yang Chen was only at the qi refining stage, so his resistance to fire was far from being comparable. Fortunately, Yang Chen had tens of thousands of years of experience playing with fire, as well as a strong self-control. Enduring the burning pain, Yang Chen began to slowly penetrate his fire attribute spiritual power into the core fire. Soon, Yang Chen found that his whole body's spiritual power seemed to be ignited by the core fire, and his whole body began to burn. This was purely a feeling. As long as Yang Chen was willing, he could use his water attribute spiritual power to extinguish this flame at any time. However, Yang Chen did not do this. If he did not experience this once, Yang Chen would never be able to truly refine and absorb any kind of fire. Enduring the pain that almost ignited him, Yang Chen's nerves were as tough as an old mountain bamboo, and he did not have the slightest intention of giving up. His powerful divine sense was constantly monitoring the state of his body, guiding the spiritual power to come into contact with the core fire little by little. Absorbing a fire in the qi refining stage was a risky thing to do, but Yang Chen did not care about anything else. First, there were still a few fellows eyeing him covetously in the falling immortal abyss. Second, in Yang Chen's mind, he was looking forward to being able to help his master support most of the sky when he was back under his master's name. Without enough strength, he simply could not do this. After absorbing the core fire, Yang Chen could be sure that his fire attribute cultivation would definitely advance by leaps and bounds. A fire cultivator with a fire and a fire cultivator without a fire were not on the same level. Even when going all out, it was normal to kill people 2 levels higher than oneself. Yang Chen urgently needed to improve his strength, but he couldn't destroy the foundation he had laid before. He could only resist the idea of swallowing some heavenly treasures to soar to the sky in a single bound, while consolidating his foundation and steadily improving his strength. In his previous life, Yang Chen, who had ascended to the spiritual world and the immortal world, knew better than anyone else what happened to those fellows who relied on elixirs to ascend to the heavens in a single bound. It was already a great fortune to be able to become a servant for someone from the spirit realm. Most of them would unknowingly run into the territory of a powerful demon beast and disappear without a trace. There were no shortcuts in cultivation. With the passage of time, Yang Chen's body began to slowly get used to the burning of the flames under the nourishment of the fire attribute spiritual power. At this point, Yang Chen began to move on to the next step. He extracted that trace of core fire into a finer form and integrated it into his 4th fire spirit thread of 36 Big Dipper and 72 Earthly Fiend spirit thread and circulated it in his meridians. The 4th fire spirit thread seemed to be boiling, and the fire quickly penetrated into the 108 spirit threads. It seemed that this dispersion reduced the power of the core fire by a lot. Soon, Yang Chen could no longer feel the existence of the core fire. Absorbing the fire seed, figuratively speaking, was using the fire seed to ignite the spiritual power. Only with enough flames could it be ignited. Just like ordinary fire, with enough flames, firewood could be ignited. Sometimes, a small spark would not be able to ignite. Just absorbing a trace of core fire was far from enough to reach this point, so he could only continue to absorb. Even because of the strange state of Yang Chen's spiritual power, he would need more core fire. The next process began to repeat simply, a trace and a trace. The core fire in Yang Chen's spirit thread was getting more and more. Finally, after reaching a certain limit, boom, the entire meridians began to burn. This time, it was a complete combination of spiritual power and fire seed, and it was a complete combination of 108 spirit threads and fire seed. Each spirit thread was filled with the flame of the core fire. The places that had not been affected before seemed to be ignited, and all of them burned. The 4th fire spirit thread was like eating a big tonic. It rushed wildly, and under the stimulation of the flame, it quickly began to circulate along the meridians of the secret art. Yang Chen had completely lost the burning pain of the fire. Instead, it was the comfortable feeling of heat generated spontaneously from the body after every circulation. The core fire belonged to the 4th fire attribute. However, after the integration of the fire seed, not only the spiritual power of the fourth fire attribute skyrocketed, but even the third fire spirit thread was like yin and yang. Under the stimulation of the fourth fire spirit thread, it began to absorb the aura of the earth veins madly, and it rose all the way. The skyrocketing spiritual power began to rampage in the body, but under the control of Yang Chen's powerful spiritual awareness, it was soon firmly restrained in the meridians and became stronger and stronger. When the accumulation of spiritual power, Yang Chen felt that it was enough. Yang Chen began to guide this fire attribute spiritual power to begin to impact several key positions in the meridians. Boom, almost like a hot knife through butter, the fire attribute spiritual power broke through a certain level, and Yang Chen finally entered the level of the fire attribute qi refining 9th layer. Suddenly there was an extra channel. The spiritual power suddenly seemed a little insufficient, but the core fire began to burn again, and the aura of the underground spiritual veins rushed into Yang Chen's body, and once again began a continuous replenishment process. When the spiritual power was accumulated enough, Yang Chen once again guided it to the next level. Under a spurt of energy, this level in the meridians was still broken through without any suspense, the 10th layer of the qi refining, the peak of the qi refining. For a while, Yang Chen had a vague feeling of feeling the aura of heaven and earth. At this realm, what Yang Chen had to do was to accumulate enough spiritual power and begin to break through his own state of mind, enter the point of communicating with heaven and earth, and then successfully build the foundation. For Yang Chen, the breakthrough of the state of mind was not a problem at all. With the experience of Great Principle Golden Immortal, how could he be trapped in a small realm of foundation? However, Yang Chen did not want to break through immediately. In the realm of the peak of the qi refining, first, only the fire attribute spiritual power improved. Other attributes also need to be appropriately improved, not too far apart. Second, Yang Chen needs to thoroughly consolidate this realm, not one-sidedly pursue the improvement of the realm. Haste makes waste. The appropriate stability for the future development absolutely has immeasurable benefits. At this point, Yang Chen slightly calculated the days, but suddenly found that, unknowingly, another half a year had passed here. Feeling the surging spiritual power in the body, Yang Chen also had an urge to make a move. Those guys who blocked him in the magma lake, it was time to settle the old accounts with them. Chapter 135. Yang Chen's figure appeared in the market of Separation Village once again. He was still sitting in that secluded corner, and in front of him was an extremely simple and crude piece of white cloth. The only difference was that there were no pill bottles on the white cloth this time. There were only 2 large words on it: pill refinement. Yang Chen had not gone to the lava lake to find those people. Another half a year had already passed, so those people would be fools if they still insisted on guarding the place despite knowing that he had escaped. Moreover, those people would probably receive news of Yang Chen's return to Separation Village very soon. As long as Yang Chen was in the village, he would not have to worry about not being able to find them. Not everyone could be like Yang Chen, who could be so well prepared and stay in the immortal falling abyss for a few years. Separation Village was the only way to enter and exit the immortal fallen abyss, so Yang Chen did not believe that he would not be able to find them there. The people in the market naturally noticed Yang Chen's appearance. Compared to the last time he had appeared, Yang Chen's cultivation had increased from mid-stage qi refinement to peak qi refinement. However, in the eyes of many foundation establishment experts, this was not something to make a fuss about. What they were interested in was Yang Chen's pill refinement level. Many people were disappointed that there were no pills, but the word pill refinement made their hearts flutter. Yang Chen's actions were easy to understand. He had used up all the medicinal ingredients he had brought in from outside, so he naturally could not provide any pills. However, he still wanted to improve his pill refinement level, so refining pills for others would not only allow him to obtain spiritual marrow, but he could also use other people's medicinal ingredients to improve his skills. You can refine any kind of pill? A voice rang out in Yang Chen's ear. Yang Chen, who had been resting with his eyes closed while waiting for customers, opened his eyes. A pair of feet appeared in front of him. A pair of black brocade boots looked very luxurious. Yang Chen did not raise his head to look at the person's face. Instead, he closed his eyes again and answered quickly, all the pills that a qi refinement cultivator can refine. Many people were paying attention to the situation here. When they heard Yang Chen's answer, everyone felt slightly relieved. This was normal. It would be strange if Yang Chen could refine all the pills as soon as he opened his mouth. However, Yang Chen immediately opened his mouth and said another sentence, which immediately attracted everyone's attention. Second stage. It was just 2 short words, but it suddenly raised everyone's expectations. A second revolution medicinal pill, even if it was concocted by a qi refining realm cultivator, could also be used by foundation establishment realm cultivators like them. The qi nourishing pill was the most direct example. Will the foundation elixir work? The person in front of Yang Chen didn't give up and asked again. Yang Chen did not answer directly. Instead, he pondered for a moment before nodding slightly and saying, sure. Also a second transition? The person in front of him couldn't help but be pleasantly surprised. He was no longer standing like before, but squatting down. He was about the same height as Yang Chen and asked expectantly. This time, Yang Chen clearly saw the appearance of the other party, but he didn't know him. He looked young and was wearing a brocade robe. At first glance, he could tell that he was a rich man. Also a second transition. This time, Yang Chen didn't spend too much time thinking and nodded directly. Foundation elixir was a medicinal pill used to restore spiritual power in the foundation establishment realm. Generally speaking, it could be refined in the early foundation establishment realm. After Yang Chen finished speaking, the entire marketplace was silent. They had never heard of a second transition foundation elixir. For most alchemists, it was already a very good performance to be able to refine a medicinal pill according to the pill recipe. Even if they reached the gold core or nascent soul stage, they would only be able to do so. How could a high-level alchemist waste his opportunity on the foundation elixir? If he wanted to refine, he would refine a higher level of elixir. The second-grade qi-nourishing pill could be comparable to the medicinal properties of foundation elixir. Then what would the performance of the second-grade foundation elixir be like? In everyone's mind, this question was tumbling, and no one spoke much. Gulp, the brocade-robed man opposite to Yang Chen couldn't help but swallow a mouthful of saliva and asked cautiously, foundation establishment pill, can it be refined? I can't guarantee it. This time, Yang Chen didn't say too much and just gave such an answer. Also a second transition? This time, the brocade-robed man's question had a trace of nervousness. As for the other people in the marketplace, they had already stopped what they were doing. Countless spiritual senses were all concentrated in this small corner, for fear of missing a word. A first transition should still be certain. Yang Chen didn't answer directly, but gave such a statement. However, this had already explained a lot. There was no problem with a first transition, so it was naturally a second transition that couldn't be guaranteed. What's the price? The brocade-robed man asked almost without hesitation. A first transition foundation establishment pill could increase the success rate of foundation establishment by 10%. 10 pills wasn't 100%, it was just a little higher than 10%. However, a second transition foundation establishment pill could increase the success rate by 50% or even 70%, and if things went well, it could directly succeed in foundation establishment. All the cultivators were clear about the difference. Prepare your own medicinal ingredients. Yang Chen replied calmly, 5,000 spiritual essence or 500 kilograms of middle-grade spirit stones. After saying this, Yang Chen suddenly remembered that it seemed that the first person he killed was the old mountain god. There were still some spirit stones in his temple. He had not been able to take them. If he had time, it would be better to take them back. Since it was a transaction with the old mountain god, there was no reason not to pay. Yang Chen's words caused a sound of cold air being sucked in by the entire market. There was nothing to say about the medicinal ingredients, but 5,000 spiritual essence or 500 kilograms of middle-grade spirit stones was a big deal. Among the people present, those who had this kind of wealth were at least experts who had trained in the fallen immortal abyss for at least 5 years. Not to mention anything else, Just the medicinal ingredients alone would cost a lot of spirit stones. A mature profound yang fruit would cost several hundred kilograms of low-grade spirit stones, and to refine a grade 2 foundation building dan, of course, one would not be enough. If the success rate was taken into account, then at least 50 profound yang fruits would be needed. This did not include the other supplementary medicinal ingredients, which were also a number that could make people collapse. If you added the price that Yang Chen wanted alone, this second-grade foundation establishment pill was enough to compare to hundreds of first-grade foundation establishment pills. The more foundation establishment pills one had, the better it was. Generally speaking, as long as one used more than 10 pills, even if they succeeded in foundation establishment, their foundation would be much worse than normal foundation establishment cultivators. However, a second-grade foundation establishment pill only required 2 at most to guarantee foundation establishment, so there was no such problem. Everyone in the marketplace was silent, and the brocade-robed man was the same. After hesitating for a while, the brocade-robed man gritted his teeth and made up his mind. He asked Yang Chen, "How many medicinal ingredients do you want, and how long do you need?" Chapter 136. If there was business coming to the door, Yang Chen naturally would not refuse it. He could use other people's medicinal materials to increase his alchemy skills, and he could also earn spirit stones and spiritual essence. Why not? Now, as long as Yang Chen was in Fallen Village, any movement in the small village could not be hidden from him. There was a small skill in the 3 Purities secret art, which could adjust the spiritual awareness into a wisp and spread it in all directions to explore the movement everywhere. This method was just a simplified version of the spiritual awareness splitting, but it could explore the surrounding situation without other people knowing. Yang Chen named it the spiritual awareness thread. Compared to the whole spiritual awareness exploration, it not only saved spiritual awareness, but it was also hidden and would not arouse the disgust of others. It was just suitable for Yang Chen to monitor Fallen Village at this time. Spiritual awareness splitting. Yang Chen's current spiritual awareness was more than a realm higher than his own cultivation base, so he could already carry it out. However, Yang Chen did not want to cultivate his second primordial spirit for the time being. His current cultivation base was too low, and 2 primordial spirits would only drag down his cultivation progress. When Yang Chen successfully released the spiritual awareness thread, he suddenly thought of a problem. Since he, a cultivator of the Qi refining stage, could do this step, then how could the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord not be able to do it? Presumably, the entire heavenly court, at least within thousands of miles of the Tushita Palace, should be under the supervision of the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord's spiritual awareness. How did the rebellion of the heavenly court succeed? Could it be that the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord intentionally or unintentionally pushed it? Thinking of this, Yang Chen's whole body suddenly broke out in a cold sweat. If this was the case, didn't it mean that there was an inside story about the heavenly court? This thought just flashed away, and Yang Chen immediately stopped thinking about it. No matter how many secrets there were in the heavenly court, it was not something that he, a small cultivator of the Qi refining stage, should care about. If he thought too much, not to mention that it would increase his troubles, it might also affect his Dao heart. What he had to do now was to play the role of a genius alchemist. Yes, Yang Chen's lifetime of experience had long since made him know that regardless of whether it was the mortal world, the spirit world, or the immortal world, pill refiners, especially high-grade pill refiners, were the most sought after. Unless it was some kind of life and death enemy, as long as there was a grudge that could be resolved, no one would pester a high-level alchemist. When Yang Chen reached the Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal stage in his previous life, because of his fire cultivation, he barely managed to become a 6th-grade alchemist. However, he had already ascended twice and had only reached rank 6. He could not be any more trash. Not to mention an expert like old Lord Taishang who could casually take out a 9 revolutions golden pill. Even an ordinary alchemist who ascended would be much stronger than him. In this life, Yang Chen had the opportunity. Not only did he already have the best profound spirit furnace, but he also had the old Lord pill method. These 2 things alone were enough to make Yang Chen have the potential to become a top-grade alchemist. What's more, in addition to these, Yang Chen also had the Xiangyang Mountain Medicine Garden in his hands. There were countless millennium elixirs and the experience of his previous life. He knew where to get a better and more suitable fire seed. Even the alchemy process of some high-level alchemist, he had personally participated in it. These added up were enough for him to become a high-level alchemist in this life. With this identity, the sect would pay more attention to himself, and correspondingly, it would give his potential enemies an illusion. Alchemists were usually poor in combat, just like Zhu Chintao of Chunyang Palace. As long as he had this identity, others would naturally look down on him, and it would be convenient for Yang Chen to confuse the enemy. The place of alchemy was naturally the hut assigned to Yang Chen. The man in the brocade robe naturally began to guard Yang Chen around the room, so that others would not easily disturb Yang Chen. The man in the brocade robe was rich at first glance. He gave Yang Chen 50 or 60 sets of medicinal materials, which was enough for Yang Chen to refine 50 or 60 first-grade foundation establishment pills. It was estimated that there was a close younger generation in the family or sect who wanted to build the foundation, so there was such a big deal. Refining the foundation establishment pill was not very difficult for Yang Chen. There was no lack of skills and pill furnaces. As long as he could ensure the continuous supply of spiritual power, it was not a problem at all. The profound spirit furnace easily refined dozens of ordinary profound yang fruits into medicinal liquid, and then with the addition of various medicinal materials, it slowly began to take shape. This was a continuous process. It took at least half a month for an ordinary alchemist to refine the foundation establishment pill, but for Yang Chen, it did not take that long. With the profound spirit furnace and the earth core fire, everything could be simplified a lot. Many people were paying attention to this place, but not many people dared to explore with their spiritual awareness. Not to mention that once their spiritual awareness exploration disturbed Yang Chen may have a bad feeling about them. Just considering that if they accidentally destroyed the medicinal pill, the man in the brocade robe at the door would not be polite to them, it was enough to make them cautious. 5 days later, there was a burning smell in Yang Chen's room. The man in the brocade robe outside the door was nervous. He knew that this was the failure of Yang Chen's refining, but he still had to bite the bullet and wait. He almost thought of all the ways. Yang Chen was the first person he met who could see hope. These days, the man in the brocade robe was almost like a year. The man in the brocade robe waited for 20 days patiently, and the other people in the village also intentionally or unintentionally increased the time they stayed in the village. Even if they went out to hunt spirit beasts, they would deliberately go to Yang Chen's room to take a look when they came back, to see what was going on. From one day onwards, Yang Chen's hut began to emit a fragrant smell. This smell was very light, but it could lift people's spirits as if it was some kind of elixir. Moreover, the fragrance began to get stronger and stronger, almost wafting through the entire separated village. From this day onwards, no one left separated village. Everyone intentionally or unintentionally wandered around Yang Chen's hut, waiting. The man in the brocade robe, who had been waiting bitterly outside, also seemed to see hope. Every day, he was anxious like a monkey jumping up and down. However, without Yang Chen's permission, he did not dare to enter easily, nor did he dare to explore with his spiritual awareness. Finally, one day, the fragrance reached its peak. Then, after Yang Chen shouted from inside the hut, all the medicinal fragrance seemed to be absorbed by something and disappeared without a trace in an instant. With a squeaking sound, Yang Chen's hut was opened from the inside. Yang Chen, who had a tired look on his face, came out from the inside. He looked at the man in the brocade robe who was full of expectations. He smiled slightly and reached out and said, "Is there a jade bottle for medicine? I don't have it here." "I do." The man in the brocade robe nodded hurriedly before he hurriedly took out a jade bottle from his cosmos sack. He did not care what was inside and poured the contents into his hand before he handed the jade bottle to Yang Chen. Under Yang Chen's control, 2 pills that were as white as jade slowly flew into the jade bottle. After they were carefully stuffed, Yang Chen handed the jade bottle back to the man in the brocade robe. "Fortunately, I didn't disappoint you." Chapter 137. Boom! The moment the jade bottle was in the hands of the embroidered robed man, the entire fallen village seemed to explode. It could be said that with these 2 foundation establishment pills, there was almost a 90% chance that one had already stepped into the foundation establishment realm. The remaining 10% was just luck. Unless one had extremely bad luck, there was basically hope for the foundation establishment realm. Except for Xianxia, almost everyone present was a foundation establishment realm expert, and there were even some gold core realm grandmasters. Who didn't have a few juniors that they wanted to help? The problem was that foundation establishment pills were not difficult to find. As long as one paid a little price, they could almost be found. However, the Second Revolution Foundation establishment pill was only a thing of legend. Now that everyone saw the 2 foundation establishment pills in the hands of the embroidered robed man, almost everyone's eyes were burning. Being stared at by everyone, the embroidered robed man was shocked and almost instantly hid the jade bottle in his Qianquan bag. Then, he respectfully took out a large pile of spiritual marrow and gave it to Xianxia. "This is the reward I promised, Master. It's just a small token of my appreciation." Although Xianxia seemed to have failed once, in the end, he still gave him 2 Second Revolution Foundation establishment pills. The embroidered robed man was already so satisfied that he didn't know what to say. He hurriedly offered the reward. He was the first person to ask Xianxia to refine pills. With this good karma, he might be able to further his relationship with Xianxia in the future. This kind of opportunity could not be more rare. How would he dare to covet the reward he secretly gave to Xianxia? In the embroidered robed man's words, Xianxia immediately became a master. He called him unusually smoothly without any awkwardness. An alchemist who could refine Second Revolution Foundation establishment pills at the Qi refinement realm was not a master. Who else would dare to call himself a master? "I am Yong Ning from the Heavenly Sword Villa. If Master needs anything in the future, just say the word. I will go through water and tread on fire." After giving the reward, the embroidered robed man didn't dare to be slow and hurriedly reported his identity. This way, even Xianxia wouldn't remember who he was. Wasn't it a big mistake? "Master, I also want to ask for 2 Second Revolution Foundation establishment pills." As soon as Yong Ning revealed her identity, someone immediately rushed over, shouting as he rushed over. He probably knew of Xianxia's identity. He had just called out Xianxia's surname, but he felt that it was inappropriate and changed the way he addressed him at the last moment. His feet were flying, and in the blink of an eye, he was already in front of Xianxia. Yong Ning's expression changed. This was clearly a robbery. Just as she was about to flare up, she suddenly heard the voices of a large group of people surrounding them. "Master, I would like to ask for a Grade 2 Foundation Establishment pill." "Grandmaster, can the yin-yang nature pill be refined?" The crowd almost squeezed Yong Ning out of the circle. Faced with such a situation, Yong Ning had no other choice. She could only rejoice that she was the first to obtain a pill refined by Xianxia and seize the opportunity. Fortunately, she had just reported her name. After leaving the immortal fallen abyss, she must get closer to Xianxia. There were many people who wanted to ask for pills, but there were only a few who had prepared all the medicinal ingredients. Many of them wanted to make an appointment with Xianxia first, and then wait for the right time to gather all the medicinal ingredients before coming back. Regarding this, Xianxia did not reject any of them. He only wanted them to come to him when the time came. However, the remuneration was not reduced. Everyone seemed to be very happy. They had a pill refiner with a bright future ahead of them. As long as Xianxia promised to refine pills for them once in the future, it would be a great opportunity. Although Xianxia's current cultivation level was the lowest in Separated Village, no one dared to make any noise when they passed by Xianxia's small house, for fear that they would disturb Xianxia's quiet cultivation. However, everyone's faces were beaming with joy, and even the spirit they exuded was different. If Xianxia could refine a Grade 2 Foundation Establishment pill now, didn't that mean that he could consider refining the yin-yang nature pill after he reached the Foundation Establishment stage? That was the first choice of medicinal pills when condensing a pill. It was a good thing that people in the Foundation Establishment stage dreamed of, especially the Grade 2 yin-yang nature pill, which meant that their chances of condensing a pill had increased by at least 5 points. Who didn't want to increase their chances of condensing a pill? Who didn't want to improve their cultivation level? Naturally, for an alchemist like Yang Chen, they would flatter him in every possible way. Yang Chen had never left Separated Village since then. If someone wanted to refine pills, Yang Chen would help to refine pills and improve his alchemy skills. At the same time, he would also add some medicinal qi to the profound spirit furnace. One must know that the reason why the profound spirit furnace in his previous life was so powerful was because it had refined too many pills of various grades. No matter what kind of elixir, once it was refined in the profound spirit furnace, it could be contaminated with enough spiritual qi and medicinal qi. Yang Chen naturally would not forget this point. Yang Chen did not relax his surveillance of Separated Village for a moment. He wanted to block the few people who dared to hit him. The last time he was kind for too long. In this life, Yang Chen did not want to be a good person again. Separated Village was the only exit of the immortal fallen abyss. Yang Chen did not believe that he could not block them. Peng Hui was very unhappy recently. The people outside asked him to kill a junior in the qi refining stage in the immortal fallen abyss, and even gave him the tracking compass in the Qianquan bag. However, when he was chasing with a few of his companions, he let the target escape calmly and even killed one of their companions. Although the companion was a disciple of a big sect that he had always been unhappy with, and as a rogue cultivator, Peng Hui could not wait for him to die earlier. However, he could not complete the task outside, which made Peng Hui lose face. After blocking people for half a year, they disappeared under their eyelids. No one would be happy. Hunting spirit beasts outside was also very unsuccessful. After Yang Chen escaped, the underground spirit beasts near him seemed to have gone crazy and started to attack them in a frenzy. In the end, everyone worked together and managed to break out, but they still ended up in a very sorry state. Over the past half a year, almost everything went wrong and nothing went according to their wishes. After hunting spirit beasts outside for 2 months, Peng Hui finally ran out of supplies and had to return to Separated Village to replenish them. As soon as he walked into Separated Village, Peng Hui sensed that something was wrong. When he raised his head to take a closer look, he saw Yang Chen standing not too far away from him. Yang Chen was looking at him with a smile on his face and a playful look in his eyes. When he saw that Peng Hui had seen him, Yang Chen's smile grew even wider. "Fellow cultivator, how should I address you?" Peng Hui was startled. He did not know why, but he suddenly felt weak and did not dare to say his name. Ignoring Yang Chen, Peng Hui snorted coldly and turned to the side. He was still wondering if he should tell his friends that it was best not to let Yang Chen know his identity. Before he could finish his thought, Peng Hui heard an unbelievable voice. "Great Master, this is an overseas rogue cultivator. Peng Hui, why are you looking for him?" Chapter 138. Who would be so insensible as to reveal his name? What puzzled Peng Hui even more was, Great Master. Which Great Master? Peng Hui had just turned his head angrily when he saw a scene that left him speechless. There seemed to be a few more people by Yang Chen's side. Peng Hui had no idea when these people had arrived, but this was enough to show that these people's cultivation was much higher than his. What was even more shocking was that these people with higher cultivation than him were smiling obsequiously at Yang Chen. One of them even pointed at Peng Hui and reported as if he was asking for credit, "Great Master, I know where his nest is. Why are you looking for him? Do you need our help?" Even a fool could tell that there was some discord between Yang Chen and Peng Hui. On one side was a high-grade pill refinement master with a bright future, and on the other side was a rogue cultivator without any backing. Anyone would know what to choose. This scene in front of Yang Chen was not surprising at all, except for Peng Hui himself. Another guy was even more direct as he asked Yang Chen, "Who cares who he is? Great Master, did he offend you? I'll take him down immediately and make him kowtow to you as an apology." This time, the person who spoke was an expert at the peak of the qi refinement stage. He did not care about Peng Hui, a mid-stage qi refinement stage cultivator, at all. As long as Yang Chen nodded, he would immediately do as he was told. This attitude gave Peng Hui a huge fright. Since when did Yang Chen become a great master? And he was so popular in Fallen Village? Seeing that a large group of people were still gathering over there and smiling obsequiously at Yang Chen, Peng Hui realized that things were not looking good. Just as he was about to escape, he suddenly felt a chill on the back of his neck as if something was stuck to his neck. Then, a sinister voice sounded from behind him. "Great Master, did this guy offend you? Do you want me to end him now?" Peng Hui was scared out of his wits. Who would have thought that a junior at the Qi refinement stage would have so many people supporting him in Fallen Village? Listening to everyone's tone, it seemed as if they wanted to use his life to curry favor with Yang Chen. He wanted to move, but the flying sword on his back prevented him from doing anything. He was afraid that he would cause a misunderstanding and be killed by the sword. This is the immortal falling abyss. Peng Hui started to stutter, and it took him a while to recover. Killing is forbidden here. Everyone only wanted to please Yang Chen, but they forgot that they were still in the immortal falling abyss. In other words, even though everyone knew that this was the immortal falling abyss, some of them still acted like they were the vanguard, just to leave a good impression on Yang Chen. When Peng Hui said this, everyone seemed to hesitate. "Master, what do you think we should do?" "How about I make him die without a burial after leaving the immortal falling abyss?" The person pointing the flying sword at Peng Hui asked Yang Chen for instructions. Although his tone was still threatening, it didn't sound like he was going to kill Peng Hui immediately. Even if there aren't 1,000 human immortals who have died at the hands of the underground spirit beasts, there are at least 800. One more doesn't matter. Someone beside Yang Chen immediately jumped out. "Let him go now. We'll follow him to a place with more spirit beasts." This person was even more ruthless, wanting to make a move in the immortal falling abyss, and then push the blame onto the underground spirit beasts. Hearing everyone's discussion, Peng Hui's heart grew colder and colder. Yang Chen didn't say a word, but the ridiculing smile on his face made Peng Hui feel more pressure than anyone else's words combined. Who would have thought that a Qi condensation junior who offended a big shot from the outside could still do so well in the immortal falling abyss? 7 or 8 peak foundation establishment realm experts surrounded him, but not only did he calmly escape, his cultivation also increased, and he even found a lot of people to rely on in Separation Village. Peng Hui couldn't understand, what did a Qi condensation junior like Yang Chen have that was worth these experts' flattery? Even if he did, couldn't they just kill him and take it? Given the current situation, Peng Hui knew that there was no way he could get along well with Yang Chen. The best-case scenario was that he would be dismembered immediately after leaving the immortal falling abyss, and that would be the best outcome. After all, he would live the longest. More likely, he would be eaten by the underground spirit beasts after coming back to replenish his supplies. Killing wasn't allowed in the immortal falling abyss, and grudges from the outside couldn't be brought into the immortal falling abyss. This was a rule set by Elder Wuxia. However, this rule was only effective in Separation Village. Elder Wuxia wasn't an immortal. How could he monitor every corner of the immortal falling abyss? Many people resolved their problems in a certain corner of the immortal falling abyss, just like when Yang Chen was being hunted previously. Hunting down others was very carefree, but when it was one's turn to be hunted, it was a completely different feeling. Peng Hui was only in the middle stage of Foundation Establishment Realm, and with a group of peak Foundation Establishment Realm experts and an early Golden Core realm coveting him, it was simply impossible for him to survive. He didn't have Yang Chen's abilities, and even now, Peng Hui didn't know where Yang Chen was hiding. "Ignore him as long as I know who he is." To everyone's surprise, Yang Chen let Peng Hui off lightly. Although the crowd didn't understand, they didn't want to go against Yang Chen's wishes. They snorted coldly at Peng Hui, then slowly turned around and left. The cold feeling on his back suddenly disappeared, and Peng Hui let out a long sigh. However, when he thought about what those people had said and looked at Yang Chen's calm face, Peng Hui knew that he couldn't escape this time. In his despair, Peng Hui couldn't help but grit his teeth. If he was going to die, then everyone would die together. In a flash, the flying sword soared into the air and attacked Yang Chen, who was turning around and walking not far away. The flying sword was swift and fierce, and it looked like it was going to kill Yang Chen in one blow. Everyone was shocked and was about to open their magic treasures when they suddenly heard Yang Chen shout, "Don't move, everyone. The immortal falling abyss has its own rules." He didn't even look at the flying sword and continued to move forward. Peng Hui naturally heard Yang Chen's words, but he had already made a move at this moment. It was difficult to put the knife back into the sheath. The flying sword only paused in the air, but it was still unrelenting toward Yang Chen. "How dare you!" Suddenly, everyone seemed to hear a clap of thunder, and a monstrous aura engulfed everyone. Peng Hui's entire body was bleeding from the shock, and the flying sword that flew out turned around uncontrollably and flew back to Peng Hui's side at an even faster speed. It didn't stop and directly pierced through his body. Peng Hui looked at the flying sword that was stained with his blood in disbelief. His body swayed a few times, then he fell to the ground with a thud. He didn't die in peace. "It's rare that someone still remembers my rules." "Very good." The voice from before rang in everyone's ears again, but this time the tone was much gentler. "Welcome to Legends of Cultivation, audiobooks, where we bring ancient fantasy to life through storytelling. Follow the rise of heroes who defy fate, unlock mystical powers, and battle across celestial realms. Our audiobooks are crafted for fans of Chinese cultivation novels, filled with battles, breakthroughs, and legendary artifacts. Subscribe and be part of an unforgettable journey into the realm of immortality."